Welcome everyone, or welcome back to our CTA Live Q&A webinar series. I'm Precious Osagi-Arese. I work here with the CTA as an instructor manager and as your level 1 instructor. I'm so hyped because today we are back with our instructor Marie, who's going to be talking to us about her level 9 course. And if you tapped in, you know she teaches multiple courses. But today we're in level 9 for SOPs for delivery. And if you haven't checked out her previous course that talks about safety and security in the cannabis industry, nonetheless, I'm excited about this conversation because you guys know me, I'm a delivery girl. Marie's known as the delivery girl on the West. I'm like the delivery girl on the East. And it's just like, this is where it's going to go down. And outside of just talking about SOPs, I really did want to get to like some of the fundamental crux of what makes delivery successful. Because in Jersey, we haven't seen it really take off. And we'll talk more about that. We know it's a new license type that recently came out. I think there's still just a handful of licensed independent Class 6 delivery services. More often than not, dispensaries are delivering for themselves because you guys know with that Class 5 retail license, you can also operate your own delivery. So we're going to talk about some of the differences between that and just really how to make delivery successful because I think it's doable, right? But cannabis adds certain levels of, let's say, nuance to make it extremely successful. So with that, we'll jump in. But before that, just want to make sure that everyone knows to please refer to the CTA courses. If you are having any issues going through your courses, make sure you're reaching out to us. We'd love to answer all of your questions, and I'll drop all the information in the chat. Or Colin, if you're around, you can drop some information in the chat about our email address or help information. And again, no matter where you are in your licensing processes, which we always say, like this information is for everyone, whether you're just waking up today wanting to submit or you're already 2 years in, hoping you get value for it. And then if you have questions, the chat should be open. If not, I will open it now. Make sure you also drop your questions in the Q&A box so we can get it, and we will absolutely get to your questions. And if you want to put down where you're dialing in from so we can kind of know, feel free. So with that, just want to pass it to Marie a little bit. We've heard your instructor intros in CTA, but just a little smidge about just your background in delivery to help set the stage for this conversation.
Absolutely. So happy to be here, Precious.
Yeah.
Love always spending time with you guys here in New Jersey. My background, I started in 2015. So my first delivery service was in medical only days, and I transitioned in 2020 from medical only to recreational. So underneath my delivery, we also started a cultivation because this is back under medical again when you had to have prescriptions to actually grow so we could grow 6 plants for all our patients. So that allowed us to go to landlords and get cultivation property and then vertically integrate the delivery business. So we have done manufacturing, a little bit of distribution, a lot of those different things, and then sold the products through our delivery service. And then I've ran, up to 250 deliveries a day doing San Francisco, Sacramento, and a few other like East Bay cities. So it's been a pretty robust history of not just delivery, but figuring out how to integrate different marketing plans and profitability schemes when you have access to the product, like we did. And then when you don't have access to the product, and then what that looks like. So yeah, I have about a decade under my belt of different avenues and trying to become profitable and what works in delivery, what doesn't work in delivery, crazy scenarios that I've seen time and time again. So yeah, it's a fun landscape to be in. I'm happy that that was my like original start. I was getting deliveries and I was like, these deliveries are not what I want. They're not up to par. I was like, how can I just get in? What's the lowest hanging fruit back in 2015? And for me, it was delivery. So it definitely was a, didn't understand what I was getting into then, but it all worked out as the evolution of the business really needed the logistics foundation.
That's what's up. I mean, we hear that often, like delivery is the lower hanging fruit of the cannabis supply chain. Sometimes I like to argue that's not even remotely
Yeah.
true. I mean, once you get in there,
Right.
it's
And
like,
I
I'm
said that
sorry,
for me
what?
because it was like back then you didn't need property, so you didn't have
Right,
to go through
right.
zoning. And so it was like, all right, I just plop my thing on Weed Maps and I get my LLC and I get some documents from an attorney and I'm off to the races. But yeah, I would not say that it's the lowest hanging fruit anymore, unless that's your bread and butter.
Right. So let's get into some of the formalities before we get into just like what we think makes delivery work. So when you are here in Jersey, you have to put together these SOPs, let's say for like your independent delivery. What are some essential components of that delivery SOP? And where do you start to pluck these ideas from to know how to execute delivery?
Definitely. I like to just zoom all the way out
Mhm.
first, right? Like, what tech stack am I using? What personnel is involved? Like, what is the purpose of this SOP? Usually, I like to have really specific purposes, like a starting SOP for a delivery driver or opening SOP for my dispatch, and then dial everything in. So, what's my purpose? What's the scope? What are all the things that I'm trying to accomplish, the goal? And then roles and responsibilities. I'm like, huge. If you don't know your role and you don't know your responsibility, you will never do your job well. So whether it's, independent or no matter what type of SOP that I'm thinking about, those are really like the essential foundational pieces. And I'm huge on photos, I'm huge on videos, but I like to get in the mindset of being the person, of course, like you as the owner, you go hop in the car. What is everything that you would need to successfully deliver? And I start with hardware, software, and then not only like character, how I want my customers or my drivers to interact with my customers, that's included, or my dispatch to interact with my customers. I like SOPs to be like extremely detailed. I'm one of those managers that's always like, I hope that when they ask me a question, my answer is it's in your SOP. Doesn't
Right.
matter what it is. Like, yep, go read, 10.4, it's underneath operation protocol for recall or whatever the situation is. I'm like huge on just zooming out, zooming back in, hardware, software, and then literally all the tangible things that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So even with that zoom out, can we just like walk through what you would see as a seamless delivery process from start to finish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about as the customer. Like, I like to look at things from like a customer perspective usually, right? So you're this digital day and age, maybe you called in, but usually you're online, right? So I'm on your website. Is it easy to order? Is it easy to find products? Is it easy to
Step
populate a
one.
cart? Like, number one, and I talked about this a little bit in my um like level 9 presentation, but having to create an account and not having every traditional payment known to man sometimes is very common in our industry. And those are the number one reasons that you leave a website. Oh, I have to create an account. That sucks. Or, oh, they don't take my payment. That sucks. So making sure from a customer perspective, you make it as easy as possible to create an account and to check out. That's like huge. So then boom, the order's placed. Now what? Like, now what? For
Yeah.
everyone, right? The customer's like, now what? The order pops up somewhere in your point of sale system. It's on the screen, it's getting packed. The automated messaging flow, the automated notification flow to your customer is just as important as any form of communication that you're going to have, because it's the most important thing. That's why DoorDash is DoorDash and Uber Eats is Uber Eats. You get all of this information in real time sent to your phone. And it doesn't need to be you, the driver, being tracked. I'm not really pro on them knowing exactly where your driver is, but an order notification saying the order was successfully placed, an order notification saying here is your estimated ETA, even if the driver is not on the way, a notification saying here's your exact ETA, or a more, just a closer ETA, 15-minute window, let's say. And then the drivers arrived. We don't have the luxury of being UPS or FedEx and leaving things at the door. Everything that we do is in communication with someone that we need to come out of their house or meet us at the door and get this from us. So the seamlessness from a customer perspective is everything. Are they on there searching for products you don't have? Can you get that information? What are people searching for when they're on their website? What are the things that are making them bounce off of your website, right? How long are they spending on each page can tell you a lot of information. And you should dive into all of these things to figure out why or where you can make it far easier for your customer to place an order in a seamless fashion. Are you getting error codes? Like anything, but from my perspective, everything is seamless if the customer experience was seamless. And then when you go in-house, driver, you've got your inventory team, you've got your dispatch team, just making sure dispatch is aware of the exact ETAs and giving a really good flow and making sure that's right. There's nothing worse. The worst things are they order something that's really not in stock, which is something extremely important for people that are shooting another retailer's menu forward and they don't have the eyes on their product. The customer calls, hey, do you have 3 such and such eighths left? The system says yes, but it's a much more complicated process when you're not housing the inventory. So verifying the inventory, of course, verifying the customer address, because we don't have the ability to deliver to government-owned land or federal property, or just making sure. Age verification, of course, the more seamless, the better. All these things should be seamless. Like, it is really easy to get weed in this day and age, and we all know that. And they could go right back to where they were getting cannabis from a few years back when none of this was actually real. So making sure it's super seamless is everything in my book.
I like the way you break that down because like people forget like we have delivery in so many other aspects of our life, right? Uber Eats, DoorDash, Instacart, shit, even laundry delivery these days
And
and
it's
all kinds
good.
of stuff, right? And I'm let me tell you, if I have an interruption in any of my delivery systems, I'm throwing a fit. It just
Mhm.
doesn't feel like, but with cannabis, it seems like there is so many areas for interruption and then it does, have people wondering, well, why am I going through all of this when I can just make a phone call and it arrives here? I usually like to think like we have to recreate these systems that we traditionally saw before, but now you have to make them safer and efficient. Which
Yeah,
brings me to my question around technology, because I've always equated delivery to technology. It just like right now in day and age, I don't see how any delivery isn't facilitated through technology. But knowing with cannabis, there's so many different, like you mentioned, a tech stack. There's so many different platforms one has to work with to even get this seamless process to the customer where they don't even know there are all of these wheels churning. How do you first create that tech stack? And then how do you then put it in an SOP? Because now there's, things are switching hands possibly from folks.
totally. Like, this is the most important piece of the business, because it's like you want to measure twice, cut once, but you're demoing 10 different point of sale systems. So you're measuring 10 times. My thing is like, base everything on your workflow. Like, do you want scheduled orders? That'll automatically cut, half the point of sale systems out. Like the interface of logistics. I think everything is manual, like you said. Like, there's so much manual. Everything that you can do, like route optimization, order notification, something like an on fleet that's going to sit with your point of sale system and hopefully send information both ways. So crucial. And then your other tech stacks, your point of sale system again, you should base that on your workflow, exactly how you want to run your business. If you're storing product, if you're not storing product, if you're shooting menus in from third parties, if you're not shooting in, how do these things sync? Do they seamlessly work together? Those are things you definitely want to get into the nitty gritty with your point of sale system. One thing I was just dealing with in New York, where we really wanted to put delivery zones together based on minimums, and we had pretty high minimums for some areas. This is a client of mine. And the point of sale system wouldn't put the delivery fee on there until checkout. So imagine you see something, it's 200 bucks, you put in your cart, then you get to the checkout. Now it's a $25 delivery fee that you didn't know about till the end. Like, you need to dig into your process flow and ask all those questions with your point of sale system. And then ask everything it integrates with. And don't assume anything. Don't assume anything. Like, make sure they integrate with QuickBooks if you're using QuickBooks. Make sure they integrate with a marketing flow. If you all this stuff gets really expensive, and every name that I roll off my lips, it comes at a cost. But if you are remarketing to your customers, you need a marketing journey flow. You need to be able to say who's bought in the last 90 days that bought edibles that has not been back. Boom, you're sending out a text message or an email notification. And those things come with software. So it might be like a Spring Big or Cabbage. There's a one called Cabbage something. It'll come to me. But there's multiple demos you need to take underneath each umbrella. It might not be on fleet. Maybe you want to demo all their competitors, and usually your point of sale system will have an in-house routing system that may or may not be what you want to be using. And they may not integrate with on fleet, which then maybe you don't want to use that if on fleet is a deal breaker for you. So you're looking at marketing, you're looking at accounting, you're looking at logistics flows, you're looking at your payment flows, right? Like maybe you have Dutchy Pay, maybe you don't. Maybe depending upon what point of sale system you're using, how do all your payments flow into somewhere seamless? You know, the one thing that I wish was there was like a dashboard that would put all these things together, but it's still so manual. You know, you're going to log into your on fleet, you're going to log in to your point of sale system, you're going to separately go to your QuickBooks and make sure everything is reported over. Hopefully, you're going into your metric and verifying all of this from your tech stack, and the APIs that they are sending electronically into metric are working, because that always doesn't happen. So it's so manual. Even like to your point, Precious, even when you think you have a system that is seamless, you still have to go behind it and double check that all of these things are integrating the way that they should be.
Yeah. And thank you for breaking it down like that. Because even as you're like spewing the different systems, that's where, we're letting folks know like delivery, when you think about how any other delivery system even formed outside of cannabis, there's multiple partners. I like one day when I was doing delivery or I wanted to start delivery, I went to work at a restaurant because I wanted to see how, from the restaurant's point of view, they're taking in orders and preparing orders when there's so many different platforms. And I did not know that like some restaurants, you got a tablet for Uber. You got a tablet for DoorDash. You got a tablet for Slice. You got a tablet for Grubhub. It's
Ugh.
all these different tablets that they're using. Then different restaurants probably use like one major software and they just have the apps loaded in. But then like sometimes they get, orders get lost. It's just so many different ways. But like knowing your process, studying your process, and like you said, understanding these systems is gonna go a super long way in delivery.
I mean, that brings up the thought of like that could be whoever we're talking to here, depending upon their setup, right? If they're independent, but they're delivering for multiple retailers, and that's like an expansion that they're biting, the menu management is crucial. You know, you're going to have, I guess, one system set up for one dispensary, one system set up for another dispensary, and you're going to be trying to figure out how you can create a SOP to manage all these orders coming in and checking all the various, I would have one email where all of my orders come into one email flow. I have my order email up, my dispatcher, just to walk through my dispatcher would have that order flow up. So hopefully I'm catching all the third party marketing orders that are coming in. But yeah, it gets so complicated.
So talk to me about like in this complexity of trying to get all things to be running at the same time for delivery. You now also have like people that have to help orchestrate your delivery. Your drivers, someone running dispatch. So like when we're talking about technology, it's not like someone puts an order. I mean, granted, there's AI and that's a whole nother conversation, but there's still dispatch that helps to kind of like create routing and figure things out, and drivers that have to execute like the whole process of picking up the order and safely delivering it. Can you talk to me about like the human element of delivery? How do you get everybody on the same page via SOPs, being that like sometimes they're doing like different moving pieces?
Yeah. I think like clear expectations is so crucial. Like going back to the SOP, roles and responsibility. My dispatcher clearly knowing my expectations of like I'm OCD, if like the phone rings like 3 times and I'm like, well, why wasn't it picked up on the first ring? Just like don't be me, but have some sort of obvious expectations that every single person has. And from the human standpoint, right? Like are you a Nordstrom's where you don't, let's say Costco, you let everybody return everything, you're happy, 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 you never say no to a customer, and you train your entire crew on that? Or you have a slightly different expectation and people are aware and trained on that. But it's really like whatever essence the top has flows downhill, right? If everything is aggressive and everything's a problem, I'm like one of those people that I like to train on problems. I hope there's a problem. So your customers will feel that when you have a customer service team that is really calm and understands how to give a really good experience no matter what's going on behind them. Because things will be going on constantly in the dispatch room or anything can be going on, but being able to answer the phone and hey, how you doing today? It's blah blah. How can we help you? It's everything to teach that human element. And it's hard to teach. For me, it's more of like you see, monkey do. You know, if my
Mm.
management is nice and they're professional and they understand the protocols and they correct in a manner that's healthy, you know, I'm like a build, build, break, build person. Like, I'm like, you do this great, you do this great. You were late to that order. I looked up your logistics. I noticed that there was a lot of traffic, but can you tell me more on like why you were late? Like, how can we help you do your job better so we all can do our job better? But it's really a culture, you know, like I hope that answers the question, but
No, that for sure answers it because that's the part I think that people also, when you're building out delivery, it seems like, oh, you can just hit a button and get it done. But meanwhile, like your drivers have to be well trained and understand, like, okay, when I'm picking up, oh, here in Jersey, we have more of a pizza delivery model. So
right,
you can only pick up and drop off from the dispensary. So, like, what is that problem? When you get to the dispensary, what do you do? Who do you ask for?
right,
Then like, then you got to enter information probably into Metric or into whatever software you're using to say you collected it. Just making sure like they're following those process and training them up.
right.
It's like another
And
big part after you figured out the process.
yo, you're like the nail on the head in this whole delivery thing, right? Is who do the customers see? Your delivery driver. Who do they talk to? Your dispatcher. They never see you. You're not the face of the company. You know, you're the face of the company, but they're not going to call and talk to you. They're probably not going to get a delivery from you. And you only have that first interaction to set the tone and then the follow-up interactions to maintain that tone. But any interaction that your driver has with a customer is the most important interaction. Like,
Mm.
and they have to understand they are the face of your business. Like even when they walk into that retailer to pick up the order, a really bad interaction over and over again, and that retailer is probably going to start to look for a new delivery company. You know, it doesn't take much, depending on your contract, whatever that looks like. But these are the things that make or break your business and have repeat orders and retention, 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 retention. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, who else are they going to see, Precious?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think like that whole process and making sure like you are executing seamless delivery is going to bring people back. Because I tell you, still in Jersey. I have not personally experienced it yet. I'm waiting. If I can get on a phone, an app, hit a button, be like, I need this, that, and the third. It tells me, oh, be here in about, or I schedule it and it's here when I schedule. I open the door. Thank you so much. Have a good day. I'm back again, like
But
clockwork, right?
yeah,
Just not happening because, if you're busy, you're moving around. So, to all the people on this call that is building this out, please get us right here in Jersey. All right, so I want to move to something that I kind of see changing, but it just is I won't say it's a weird space. It's the cash handling, right? Of money when you're doing delivery. So of course we know there's the rules and regulations. You can't have cannabis delivery slapped on your vehicle, on all these things. You're kind of moving covertly without moving covertly. That's another thing we'll jump on in terms of safety, but like how is cash handling the most effective for cannabis delivery from your standpoint? And then even just going back to like customer training, are we training the customers to prepare to pay digitally beforehand? And then like where are we saying we see more cash these days, more digital, like payment processing is a whole nother wild, wild west in the cannabis space.
right,
Talk to us
inexpensive.
about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I'm a little classic. So I always say cash is king. But me as the owner, right? I'm like, oh, I love cash. I'm not paying processing fees. It's not as safe, but typically pretty safe as long as it's a vetted customer. But the world lives in, of course, digital payments. And I really appreciate digital payments on the driver side because the tipping is much higher. Usually, if you have a digital payment, everyone is trained for that 10, 20% tipping option, 15%. So the drivers really appreciate it because, I mean, every day it happens to me where I want to tip, but I don't have cash. And then, the order is $88 and I handed you $90. Like, thanks, buddy. Have a good day. But if I had my card, I would have put it through a process and I would have given him a much higher tip. But I mean, I want to say both are headaches, because it's just again so manual. Like if you're taking, I love that New Jersey allows you to take payments in from multiple places, but how are you managing that? And then how are you getting that information to your driver that something is paid? Is it always paid prior to them leaving? Do they have 5 routes they're on and you're still trying to get a hold of the fifth person or sending them payment links or what have you, awaiting the PayPal verification or whatever it is. So funneling all payments, of course, in like one consolidated way of managing them. Dispatch is usually going to be the best person for that. And then cash, I mean, we could definitely get into safety protocols and things that can help you manage and your drivers manage cash, but I still like a 30-70 split, I would say 30% cash. And people like cash is only decreasing, so I don't think that it'll be increasing, but it's interesting too because you do have a lot of customers that are used to going and seeing their traditional person, right? And they want to pay cash. And you have states that don't even allow cash, which I find mind-boggling. So being able to take all of these different payments is a gift for sure. It's just about being able to manage it in real time. So where are the payments coming in to like Cova Pay or AeroPay or whatever point of sale processor you're using, and then what's out of that, and then who hasn't paid, and then dispatch making sure, oh, they haven't paid, I need to call them. Oh, I can't get a hold of them. Cancel that order. Don't go to, stop number 3 because they haven't paid. Oh, boom, now I got a hold of them. They called back. The payments process, move them to your last stop now on the way back. Like all of these things are moving in real time depending upon how you're taking payments. But
Mhm.
I appreciate that you guys can take so many payments. I really think it's just a matter of managing, the SOP for your driver and the SOP for your dispatch to verify. And if a payment is not made, dispatch reaching out to them, and then that process between your driver and dispatch to confirm the order has been taken.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because there was a time where it was like literally just cash, right? Especially if you're back there in the California market. You remember like the early days of that. And then there were even issues with like moving so much cash in vehicles and like
And my Square
safety.
account getting shut down like 6 times, and I'm like, oh my God, like what? And that's also like, and not even because what you're doing is not compliant, but I will say it's always great to have multiple debit processors because, and we talk about this in the flow, but the percentage of downtime and the percentage of payments that do not validate in some of these systems for the debit cards are more than we would think. We think debit, we think easy, we think basic transfer of money, but logging into the Plaid system and all of like the additional steps that is required, it's great to be able to take payments in multiple ways in debit. And don't be scared to have a backup just because you love the guy that gives you 2.5%, and there's somebody else that's at 3%, let's say. Don't hesitate to have that as your backup because days will come when payments are down and you do not want to not be able to take a payment, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are days that are just not so great in delivery, right? Days that make you really want to pull your hair out. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And this is still on like that safety and security side, mainly around like when you're actually doing the deliveries. What are some things you've seen in the field that like are super preventable or that things you had to sort of learn from to adjust your SOPs around safety when you're doing delivery? And what are some key safety measures you think folks should definitely keep in mind if they're drafting that SOP?
I think this is like going back to our last question, right? High cash orders. Like you see an order come in, it's $500. It's their first time ordering with you. You look at the ID, they're under 40. Red flags should go up. I mean, maybe you haven't been in this industry before and this is something you're just now touching, but a lot of things can be prevented due to like your gut sense, right? Like if there's an order in the address and you pull up the address and it's in, a really dark environment and there's a sketchy feeling that you have, maybe you ask just further details from the person and find out exactly if it's feeling good to you or not, or if you just want to cancel it and wait till the daytime. There's some places maybe you just don't want to go at night. Like there's maybe environments you don't want certain drivers in, and just make sure you go by your gut feeling. Usually if you feel something weird about it, if something is off, like it can be little things, like you kind of have to distinguish between something that's off and someone that just really wants their order. But, you should just be wary of those high dollar orders. If it's at nighttime and it's a young, like say the ID comes in and they're 22, 23, you want to make sure to triple verify when you get on site that, you know, make sure that the face actually matches with all of the protocols that you train on, because those are things that are going to get you. And like credit cards, like if you take credit cards or you take a payment that can be disputed, you have to be super careful. Um, it feels right. You know, the guy's like, oh, I'm handing you $500 every week. I love this guy. And then 6 weeks later, you get chargebacks through your bank account for $3,000 from the guy that got all that weed. So just be careful. You know, I'm not one of those people that shy of like making customers earn certain like trust with you, because it is what it is. You can have $100 maximum for all first time patients, or a $200 maximum, especially if it's cash, you know, and then once you've built a relationship with them, you can definitely increase it. But yeah, just feeling don't ever feel like you're like, if you feel like it's something you're probably putting them in a questionable situation. As the drivers, I always train my drivers, like if you pull up and it feels weird, like just pull off, you know, like there's no amount of money worth, like usually, you know, the customer walks up and they're like, "Oh, I got my cash. Like, can I see the order? You know, can I see what's in the bag?" And it's like, no, like, you know, it's like these exchanges are gonna go bad every time. You know, like they grab the bag, they run off with the order. Next thing you know, driver's got no money, no order. It could be worse. You know, there's far worse situations where threatened or weapons are involved. And in those cases, I just give the person the rest of the day off and like do whatever I can to comfort them in that moment. But yeah, there's no, for me, there's nothing better than just avoiding it if possible. You know, do a little due diligence, see if they've ordered from you in the past, see what the order was like, see what their history is. And I always wish, like, back in the medical days, we had a list that we would share. All the delivery services would share like a list of fraudulent interactions that they've had, names that we've all banned from the system. And so if it's possible for, you know, the New Jersey delivery alliances to kind of join forces to be really transparent about the bad actors, it's usually not that many, but I mean, they will. It, in this day and age, I always say like it's 10 times easier to scam you on my credit card than it is to run off with a bag. So be wary of if you're taking orders in ways that can be disputed. You really want to be careful.
Nice. Thanks for that. I want to jump into some questions we have in the Q&A box before getting back to some of mine. We have one here from Jacob that says, do you recommend standalone payment systems? I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to think if you mean like independent payment processing systems outside of the ones that exist,
I kind
or
of think maybe like a stripe or something.
yeah, give us a little bit more detail on your question, Jacob, if you can.
Yeah,
But
Jacob, give more detail. I want to just say yes because I'm. If this involves adding an additional, well, if it's a standalone, then no, 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 no. If all you have is one and it's literally a standalone processor, because if that standalone goes down, then you're going to be down until you can take payments again. But I recommend being able to take payments every way that you can and having a backup.
Thanks for that. And then here's another question from Edward. It's possible to get an up-to-date SOP for delivery. So I'm also thinking about this like in terms of templates. When you were first putting together, when people first put together SOPs for delivery, are there templates out there? Where can you start? Do you literally have to kind of like you said, we talked about the process. Now you're writing it down and you're
Right.
having to build that out. Where do you even get started with putting together your SOP?
I don't start until I pick my tech stack. And when I pick my tech stack, when I ask all of these questions, when I'm demoing the tech stack, I dig into their SOPs. So if I'm talking to OnFleet, I'm like, what SOPs do you have? Or if I'm talking to Dutchy, what SOPs do you have for order creation? What SOPs do you have for inventory? And I try to extract everything that I can from my tech stack provider. Then I take that information and I take my employees and I build the bridge, right? So it's grab the iPhone, make sure you open XYZ app, make sure you log in to your driver profile, then grab, you know, sometimes I have cars that have built-in cameras or sometimes they install their own camera. So grab the camera, grab like depends on how we lock the equipment. So
Mhm.
I mean, it might be in the car already. Sometimes they have to grab the boxes, put them in, lock them in. And I like to use cognito forms. It's just a digital form. Like to answer your question, it's like you'll never stop writing SOPs and you'll never stop editing SOPs. Like, and as you like become more efficient throughout the process, you'll continue to edit and hopefully delete things and make things a little more simple. But the best place to get your SOPs is from your point of sale system. And if they don't have SOPs, like red flag, like they should have some training modules set up for you in some way. Maybe it's not a one pager, but you have to take what they're giving you in a video form or a different form and put it together to apply for you. But get it from the point of sale system and then take the thing, like you can pay for SOPs online. They're not going to be for your workflow. Your workflow is your workflow and only your workflow. And even going to the cars, right? What's built into the car, what's not built into the car, from the drivers coming in, do they own the cars? Are they your cars? What equipment needs to go in there? And then you're building out the workflow from the point of sale system, accepting orders. That should be a lot easier because it's coming from the point of sale system. But you are always going to be the bridge in between. And you might have workflow, obviously, for retailers. That's totally different from an independent workflow. So, I mean, each of your retailers is going to have a workflow, and you want to work with them to build that out. Like you want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what my drivers are coming and doing and who they need to talk to, like Precious was saying. What exactly does that look like every day, no matter who the driver is, no matter what, right? So it's hard to just plug and play. The template is there, all day the template is there. And then your point of sale system will provide you a good reference. And then in between, I would recommend a Cognito form for all the tangible things that they need to do. And Cognito is great too because you can take pictures of the car, you can take pictures of the mileage. So, like, great, take a picture. It's instructing them, question by question. Stop, take a picture of the mileage. Done. Or do you have your video? Yes. Do you everything that you need? Your binder, your license, blah blah blah. Then they're off to the races. They've got everything packed, and then they come back. They can close it. They can take a picture of their odometer when they get back. They can check the car. It has everything for the car, right? Like checking your lights, checking this, checking that. It can be as detailed, especially if you own the car. If you own the car, you should really have it maintained daily. And every person that drives it needs to take photos or video and make sure that it's clean and everything's back in order. Um, but it's really based on your workflow. What if you have scheduled orders? What if you don't have scheduled orders? All the things that are kind of like up to you to choose, and then you to choose your point of sale. And then everything else is pretty plug and play.
I like that because like that's the part of delivery that is gonna be hands-on. Like for all types in the supply chain, when you create your SOP, you're gonna have to pull information, even if you have a template, but then you're actually gonna have to get in there and write things out
Yeah.
because these are living documents. They're gonna change all the time. As you get more efficient, you're gonna realize, dang, that person probably doesn't need to pick up the iPhone 12 times before they actually open the app, right? Like you'll just get rid of a lot of the fat and you'll get in there and like start to execute. But one thing and again, I was this person years ago. I can grab a template online. It gives me all the information. I know all the good stuff. When I tell you at the end of the day, I think 90% of the SOP ended up being just language I had to write verbatim was because I had to go in the field and actually execute. I'm like, well, this wouldn't work that way. That wouldn't work that way. I have to do this. I have to talk to this person.
And
And
you don't even realize that till you get in the field.
until you get in the field, and then all of your partners that you use may have different processes than you thought you would have when connecting with them. Like when I go pick up from a retailer, do they want me to come to the back of their facility or walk through the front? And who do I call? Who do I ask for? And almost it gets pretty tedious and in the weeds like that. So definitely something you guys should look
Yep.
out for if you are in that building out your SOP phase. But don't look at it as intimidating, right? It's actually just literally writing down the steps so that when you hire new people, they have somewhere to go to understand. I think like people sleep on that important fact, how tedious it would be to train someone all from just like, all right, just go figure it out, rather giving them a document and saying, here's what you have to do. You can always refer to that.
Definitely.
Taking one more question from our Q&A box, and then I want to jump into one more thing while we have about like a little bit, about 10 minutes left. Which I think is a great question. Can you tell me Edward asks, can you tell me the qualifications for becoming a delivery driver? And I'll go even further and say, what makes a good delivery driver?
C- Timeliness, number one, and customer service. Like, also, like, it depends on who's packing the order. Like, y'all, in theory, of course, all the orders should be packed. I can't imagine like the drivers are packing their own orders, but maybe they are. Okay. So let's just say they're not. Then customer service, customer service, customer service. And then execution. It's not a difficult job, but it does require attention to detail and motivation to be on time and a lot of communication. More communication. Like, well, you have those drivers that like call dispatch nonstop, and you're like, all right, stop calling. But then you have the drivers that never call, and then they didn't tell you they were late to an order, and they didn't tell you that all their other orders are 30 minutes behind, and you're calling them, you're tracking them, you're pulling it up, and you're like, why is he over here when he's supposed to be over here? Oh, he took a different route, but he didn't report that back to dispatch. So, like, communication, 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 and customer service. Like, my favorite drivers were people that would build relationships with our customers. The customer felt like, they're like, is Tracy there? Can Tracy do my delivery today? Or is so and so there? And, there's nothing crazy going on. They're just making a connection with a human, dropping them a nice bag of sunshine, I like to call it. And this is how I train people, and when I'm training, I'm thinking about the opposite, right? Where ease, for instance, the huge conglomerate delivery that came out here and then crashed and burned, like they were the opposite of discreet. Their guys would walk up like, "Hey, you want the cannabis order?" I would want my drivers the complete opposite. So just a passion, like some sort of passion, even if it's just a passion for people, that's great. Like being on time is everything because of course we're giving ETAs all day. If they're late everywhere they go, it's gonna make a frustrating job. And just a people person, like someone that is truly like enjoys people, likes people, doesn't mind being in the car all day. Someone that's not a complainer because there's plenty things to complain about when you're out in your car all day. The world is out there. This guy cut me off and blah blah. And I had to wait 15 minutes outside John's house and he knew I was there. Like, cry me a river. It's just people that have a great positive attitude about what they're doing and don't mind. It's not like you don't see new things every single day, but it is, quite redundant in what they're doing. So it's good to have people that are passionate for that.
Nice. Thanks for that answer. And thanks, guys, for all those questions that you dropped in there. I want to now talk about just like the viability of this delivery license because we've seen it, like you said, you saw a huge conglomerate like Ease, big in the in the West Coast, no longer essentially doing that. What are you really seeing in delivery that's like making some businesses just not work? And what is actually going to make this delivery license viable for someone who wants to go out for it? Because that's probably my biggest contention because I've seen it and done it too, right? Delivery is not a joke when you think about like vehicle maintenance, tech stack, money, like even the financial model of it, especially if we don't own inventory, right? And you don't have that full access, you're delivering on behalf. And even if you're a retailer that can do delivery yourself, your mileage is probably really small. How you implement a delivery fee, like, based on mileage, all of these factors are, I can go on and on. So just taking all of that stuff, and I know this is pretty super broad question. I still want to know what your thoughts on the viability of a delivery license and if you think it's something definitely worth pursuing and how do you actually make it successful?
Totally. It's like a layered
Yeah.
answer of a million different things, but like starting small is
Yeah.
crucial. Like get proof of concept. Don't go out and try to challenge the next guy or the biggest retailer or whoever it is that you see that's paying all that money on weed maps, let's say for the top three spots or something. Just focus on what works, focus on starting small, a good menu. Like participating in the race to the bottom is not what you want to do. It'll never be viable. None of us are Amazon. We're not Jeff Bezos. You cannot charge, 10, 15% less than everyone else and knowing that that's all your profit and expecting to do that forever. Like you have to have profitability. You prove profitability and get to that point as fast as possible. Even if it's only like one driver. If you have one driver and you, and you can get that driver to 12, 15 orders a day, you're doing something right. And then add a part-time driver, and then get them to 8 orders a day, and then change that into a full-time driver. And then start, they say, spend 20% or something of your gross on marketing. I don't have a number, but make sure your marketing is worth it. If you are going to pay for marketing, if you are paying for search engine optimization and you're paying to work your way into more key views in certain areas, do it right. Make sure that whoever you're working with is proving themselves and is showing you true value in your business and where these orders are coming from. And know where your orders are coming from. Like if you're on Yelp, if you're on Weed Maps, have a different phone number. Have a code. Like this is something that you should totally talk to your point of sale about. Can you put code words? Like if you give out, this is so simple. You run across someone, they're like, oh yeah, order. My code word is Marie. You get 10% off. Can you do that? Do you have the ability to do that? So if something comes in, a Yelp code word versus another third party or someone through an event and they're supposed to be creating business for you, how do you know that that's even happening? Data, good data in, and making sure that like if you're gonna go for these things, just do them in quarterly sprints. Work with that guy, see if he can do something for 3 months, see if it adds value for your search engine optimization example or something. But start small, like, and become. It is possible to be profitable. It is with that model. As long as your rent is crazy, I'm sure, and you got all these other things. But if you hire 5 drivers and you're only doing enough deliveries for 2, like that 2 could solve, which is the normalcy for just kind of like bloated personnel and how things are hired. Like let your market set how you infuse money into your business. Do not just infuse money into your business. Don't think, oh, Weed Maps is going to get me to the top. I'm going to give them 10K. No, create a schedule with them maybe to figure out how you can work in your way into a very clear ROI. And they are happy to show you ROI. But if you're working with someone, they're not happy to show you their return for your business, then it's not going to work. Anyways, on a spiel there, but scheduled orders, scheduled orders, scheduled orders, scheduled orders. Train your customers to schedule their orders. Bringing lead in 15 minutes to somebody that is placing a $30 order is never going to be profitable for you. Never going to work. Finding high dollar clientele, no matter what it takes, no matter what you're doing, somebody their checkout is averaging $200, you're going to be profitable. Even if you only do 10 deliveries a day, you'll be profitable on that $2,000 versus someone that's working twice as hard or 10 times as hard doing $30 deliveries all over, right? That's not a special sauce, but it definitely is based on how you market orders. Like everything that I would do on my website was to get you to spend $100, whether it was a bundle, a combo, a deal, a special. I don't care what it is. Like, and we were able to give pre-rolls away for a long time here, or a penny pre-roll. If you spent $100, you got a penny pre-roll every day. I would do everything that I could to make sure that my daily average is above $100 for my customers. And that was always like a secret sauce because $30, $100, 3 orders, 1 order. This customer, happy, nice, probably got a little bit more disposable income, probably tips a little better too. Just making sure, and is willing to schedule an order. Like they're not mad that they're not getting their $200 order in 15 minutes. And nowhere in any realm competing to do an onslaught of 15-minute deliveries is going to be profitable. And with this, it's kind of weird because the retailer and you are going to have to work out what your ETA allowance will be. But, you want to live in a realistic world, and 15-minute deliveries is definitely not going to be there. And then expansion, like how we're talking about expanding, don't just add zip codes with no marketing, with no attention to developing that area prior, because then you just have a driver that you're paying to be really idle in that area. So pre-marketing, email blasting, whatever it is that you can do to build a customer list somewhere prior to launching and drumming up that marketing exposure. But I mean, it's profitable. It is possible to be profitable. It's just based on how you create your geographic flow, how many drivers you have on staff, or the amount of orders that you're doing, and really like keeping it super trim. as trim as possible. I used to have my mom work for me. Like maybe you can do that, maybe you can't. But I literally would have my mom and take all my customers from my point of sale. I was using I was using like a third party ordering system, and then I would have her take it and put it into my point of sale system. So it's so manual. Sometimes you need your mom, but if you can't get your mom, then you're on the hook for that. So you have to be able to put in a lot of, I won't say free time, but busy work time that is not at the highest pay for your own business. Because
Listen, how bad do you want it, right?
exactly,
Like
it's
the
definitely one of
beginning
those. But when you
and
start
like
counting cash, you should be a
right.
little happy. You're like, okay, I think I can get to this $2,000 a day, and setting those goals for yourself to spend more money, right? Like it's viable if you're like, all right, once I get to $1,000 a day, I hire this person. I should be at X profit. I can add 10% into my marketing spend. I can add 10% into my customized, like any merch you want to give out, right? But you should have really dream big, but create like really conservative milestones for you to spend more money.
Yeah. I really appreciate that answer because it definitely did sum it up. Like incremental growth is the name of the game in delivery.
Yeah.
Incremental growth, letting the market dictate your moves is going to be super, super vital for you guys. And just again, not rushing all the things. It is a new habit. You're training. There's a lot of customer education. Get smart with your financial models when you're adding a delivery fee. How is it making sense based on radius and mileage and so many other things? When you find the space to implement on demand delivery after having scheduled deliveries there, because that's going to be your bread and butter. I don't know how you're making money in delivery if you're not having scheduled deliveries at all. Whether you're already a class 5 delivery service and a retailer, you just got a driver. Imagine having a driver just like, oh, order ready, gone. And then order, oh, it matters. So thank you so much for breaking that down and looking over it. And I just want to thank you for your time and jumping on delivery. Folks, this information is in her course and then some, spelled out a lot more in detail, which leads me to my last question I ask every instructor. What is the advantage of taking your course?
Oh man, I think like even if you just walk away with being able to understand not just your business operation flow, because you're gonna figure that out day to day, but the tech stacks that you're gonna have to use to make your business easier, the compliance piece of what you really need to know, whether it's reporting, accuracy, metric, anything having to do with inventory. But I mean, again, these are all the things that I wish that anyone had been able to give me prior instead of going and retraining and relearning and all the different things they have to do every time you change a tech stack or convert from one point of sale to another. And I can't stress like how painful it is to change these things. So if the one thing that you would get is, oh man, I was just about to sign on, but let me go demo 3 or 4 other people and let me ask them about their SOPs. And let me ask them if they train my staff and what that looks like and if there's ongoing trainings. Like try to take the monkey from your back in places and put it on the people you pay.
Mm,
'Cause you
a
pay them.
word, a
So
word.
yeah.
Hope you guys all clocked it. Marie, I literally could talk to you about delivery for days. I fangirl when I hear you talk about this because I feel like there's no one who understands the real crux and
I
just
feel like
the
we could talk forever.
professionalism of it all. No, for real. Everyone, thank you guys for joining. Again, make sure you are locked into your CTA courses so you can grab this information. We dropped our info in the chat in case you ever need to reach us. With that, I will sign off. I hope everyone has an excellent Tuesday and stay tuned for our next course. We'll be going into SOPs about tax and accounting. Don't think it's not as sexy as delivery. It's probably the sexiest thing you need to know about cannabis because it's your money. So tap in with us on that next week and we'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Perfect.